Hi, Tech and Talk. Some time ago, I started Entity Framework Core series, and at that point, it was .NET Framework 3.1, and I only created one video, so I decided to continue this series. And today, I cloned the GitHub repo, and straight away, I upgraded that solution to .NET 7.0. You can see that if I just go to properties, you can see it is now on 7.0. And apart from that, I also created all the packages. You can see those are all on 7 point something. And let me recap what I did previously. I created a DB context. So we were following code first approach where I created a post entity and I build a relationship with comments. So one post can have multiple comments, and you can see that, and one comment should be against a single post. So that was one to many relationship. And let me show you guys the connection string. So this was the connection string. Previously it was connected to SQL server, so now I am using SQL Express. I just changed this value here, and I also used the server certificate to true to use my local SQL Express instance installed in my system. All right, let me give that solution a try. Let me press Ctrl F5, and it should return me list of posts. You can see that I have those couple of posts, and what I'm doing is let me start adding some comments. Let's start adding some comments and created db context, created a post object associate a comment, and finally I pass that post object to database, and it's saved. And again I'm fetching those posts, and I'm getting the post of list, and I'm looping through the post, and it's let me try to also loop through its comments. Okay, I will use for each, and I will go through all those comments, and let me again run the application once. So you can still see that there are no comments coming from the previous added posts. You can see that only I am getting the first one because this is already present in the comments list. So entry framework is not fetching that one from that database, which means we are unable to load the relational data from the database. And why is that so? And that's why the virtual keyword is very important. If you go to the post class, the post entity, we already have established that comments relation, that is a post can have multiple comments, but you can see that the virtual keyword is missing. So virtual keyword is very important in terms of when we want to fetch the relational data. And there comes the role of eager loading and lazy loading in entity framework core. So from 6.0 onwards, the lazy loading is enabled by default. So related data will not come just by querying the parent entity. To fetch the child data, we need to explicitly include the child records or objects. So just by putting the virtual, let's retry the same query. And let me close this one and rerun the application, and let's see if this time we can get. You can see we are only getting the post, no comments are present here, and because we haven't loaded the comments against those posts yet. So for to get the relational data, we need to include the child records, and in our case that is we need to pass lambda that we want all the comments against a post to be fetched as well. And if I now hit Control F5, we should able to see post its comment, post its comments, and you can see all the comments are now getting fetched from that database. So that was one thing we need to take care of while fetching records from database. The relational data will not come by default to include them, we need to use that include method to fetch all the relational records from the database. All right. So that was one thing. Previously, we have implemented one-to-many relationship. In this video, we will try to cover one-to-zero relationship. Like user can have the detail table where all the details against a user can be stored. So one user can have only one record in the details table. In this context, a post can have a category. Let's say for that one, I will go to the again data folder entities. Over all entities are here. By entity, I mean a single class per table. So I will add a new class which will eventually be converted into table into the database. So I will say that it's category, and I will add a public class category, and next I will use prop int id, and that will be the id, the primary key of this entity. So by default, if we use a property with the name id, it will entity framework will assume that as a primary key by default. Next, each category should have a title or name, and let's assume we only need those two at the moment. And again, let's jump back to the post where we need to include relationship here. For that one, I will use public int category id and public category. So and this should be setting of your entity class, all the properties, then the navigation properties. First put the single relational properties and then multi-relational properties, right? So now we will have another column in the database with category ID, and that will be linked to a single category in the database. And don't forget to put virtual keyword. It's very important, as we already have demonstrated. All right. And the other, default setting of or configuration of entity framework is if we use in type property just before our object property like category, and we have used the keyword of that entity, the name of that entity, and we are adding id as a postfix, then that will be considered as foreign key for that record automatically by entity framework core. And at the moment, we don't need to take care of advanced configurations. So let's go with that approach. So this way we can create a relation one to one or one to zero relation. We can say a post now will have a category ID column, which will be linked to a category, and we don't need to add anything in that entity here. So that will be standalone entity. Next, I will be adding that change through a migration. For that one, I will be adding a new migration, add migration, and I will name it category edit, and this will compose me a migration file. You can see that a new column is added inside post table, and a new table is created with the name of category, and we have an index created against the category ID, which is fine, and a foreign key constraint is added, and which is cascade delete. So whenever a post is deleted, all of its categories will be deleted by default. This should not be the case, but for now, let's go with that. All right, the migration has been, let's apply that migration by using update database command. And we are getting the error due to that category ID because some data is already there in the tables. So we need to remove those records because this is a mandatory relation. So we can't put empty or zero. Okay, so let me remove all these records from the table. I'm doing those changes here. I'm removing all those records and I'm double checking the comments as well. Comments are empty as well. All right, let's try to apply the change again. Now migration has been applied, and let's go back to program.cs to give it another try. Tool F, and before that we need to add a category as well. I will add a category here is category, something like that. And here I will add name because I don't need to add ID. Those are auto-generated. So primary keys are auto-generated. So while adding records, we don't need to mention or include the ID property. Let's say this is a general, and I will use curly braces again. Now a category is added. We now just need to press Ctrl F5 to add that record into database. So post is created, the comment is added, and let's see if we are able to get those categories as well. So for that one, what I will do is I will update the same message here, and the is post dot category dot name, like that. All right, let's see what happens now. And we are getting the exception because, as we already know, although we already made that property virtual, but we haven't included that while querying. You can see we have pulled the comments, but we haven't included the category. So I will use again the lambda expression to include category for me. And if I now run the application, it should be work fine. Now you can see that the post is this and the category is journal, and everything is working fine. So this is how we can add one to one or one to zero relationship using Entity Framework Core CodeFirst. And this is why the visual keyword is very important. Whenever we want to go for the query with default Entity Framework core settings, we should have visual keyword along all those navigation properties. So that was all for this video. In case of any question or queries, do ask me in the comments, and see you in the next video.